Okay, going to start with the Irish Independent, and obviously confusion reigns over the potential move to sale for Paddy Jackson, Stuart Olding. Rory O'Connor has some interesting details here. Obviously, if you saw this yesterday, the Telegraph ran with the story that it was a done deal, that contracts had been discussed, numbers had been fleshed out, that it was going to be a reduction in pay for Paddy Jackson from 250 grand to 200 grand. But then yesterday afternoon, Sale came out and said, no, this was never confirmed. They've had complaints from MPs and complaints from season ticket holders, and so they were like completely distancing themselves from the notion of signing Jackson and Olding. However, as Rory O'Connor points out, the Australian player James O'Connor was due to sign for sale, and they were like, no, we're definitely not signing James O'Connor. And then 2 weeks later they signed James O'Connor. So there's a track record. And there was also the South African scrum half Faf de Klerk, who they issued a statement saying, no, we're not signing Faf de Klerk. 2 weeks later, Faf de Klerk signs for them. So maybe it's flying a kite to see what the response is going to be like from sponsors, from supporters, and from the general public. And if that response is completely negative, you're like, oh, we never meant, no, that wasn't us. That was somebody else.
But they're going to get a negative response wherever it is. At first, there will be bit of a shitstorm probably to start with, won't there? And then it'll almost be just get on with it. That's what it seems to me how it's going to go. But the lads themselves probably they're just thinking they're in limbo, aren't they? That as long as this goes, and the more scrutiny that's put on where they're going to go to, then there's putting pressure on the clubs, I suppose. So it's a difficult one, I suppose, for clubs actually to commit themselves and think, we're going to go with it. But we'll see what happens with that one.
I was making the point yesterday that if you're a club and you've decided that you're okay with what's happened in the past and you just want to move forward and sign players at a below market rate, then don't do it now. Wait until just before the season starts. Like you lose nothing by not signing them now, apart from the opportunity to sign them. And really, if any club is actually going to burst in, break the door down and go, no, we have to have these guys now, then they're going to. There's obviously a trade-off that they're willing to take for that, but I don't think a lot of clubs are actually willing to do that. So,
but I can maybe judge it then in football terms, because if a lad's out of contract and they're not necessarily the most desirable player when they're out of contract, you'll constantly see actually the season starting. So the free agents then, they know full well the clubs that he's like almost like my fallback plan. Exactly. If we don't necessarily, we're not able to get a player, we can actually go and get him at any stage while keeping the player. Yeah, we want you. Just keeping him right, or keeping him sweet, I suppose.
I think that's exactly it. And as that goes on, the amount of money you have to pay them lessens and lessens and lessens, and they get more desperate to sign for you. So it always seemed to me like there were agents in the background saying, oh, there's a massive market, loads of people want these guys. But what happens then when you don't actually have a signing, the agents end up looking like the boy who cried wolf. It's like, ooh, it turns out nobody wants you guys.
Yeah. I know. Well,
and actually, the toxicity around you is so severe that why would we rush? Why would we rush it in? The other thing I think is that if I was advising them, you would wait until one of the big teams loses an out half for the season to injury. If you think about, there's like 12 teams in England and 14 teams in. Like one of them is going to need an out half urgently at some point in September.
I understand totally there's going to be so much pressure on the two lads. No matter where they go, there'll be so much pressure, so much scrutiny, as I said earlier on them. But on the flip side of that, what you're saying is that, are they going to be right physically when they go in? Because all of a sudden then they've got to be right physically. Yeah, they'll probably think physically, maybe in myself I'm fine, but have they been taking the hits? Have they necessarily been right to actually step into someone's shoes to say if there's an injury then perform to such a level that you've got to try and maybe, so it masks what's happened in the past and masks maybe the scrutiny that's been around you. That is the fine balance, I think, with this. That's what I'd feel.
And that's why you would try and get, if you were them, try and get them into a club earlier rather than...
If I'm them, I'd probably want to do that. That's what I'd rather do, because I think you've got them maybe a little bit, you've got a few weeks to, even if you don't necessarily start one of the early games in the season, then you're actually looking to it and you're thinking, well, I'll tell you what now, I'm going to be fine in 2 or 3 months, rather than trying to hit the ground running where you signed as a big player as a replacement for injury.
And it's in competitive mode straight away. So we'll talk about Rory McIlroy as well a little bit later. Rory's Open secret is the story. I don't care about the US Open or the Open Championship anymore. I think he's kind of, slight overreaction here from McIlroy. We may as well talk about this now, actually. So this is a story that's in the papers today where he's recovered from his Masters, I can't remember, dismay I think was the word that was used, and he did it by watching box sets. Billions is the one that I haven't watched any Billions.
No, I haven't seen it at all.
It doesn't
no.
really appeal to me that much. Maybe if you're Rory McIlroy and you're...
Obviously, you're going to tell me what it's about then. What's the story? What's the...
There's a guy who's a billionaire and it's about his lifestyle.
Right.
And the kind of difficulty of being a billionaire, I think.
Right.
Something that maybe Rory McIlroy identifies with a bit more than you and me.
Yeah, the private jet lifestyle. I think that's what it is, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. And also by like just staying in, and then eventually his wife was like, come on, let's get out. And so they get out and they see the real world again. He's like, yeah, I just didn't, put too much pressure on myself that day. And the other thing was like by reading self-help psychology books, the Chin Paradox and that kind of stuff. I don't know. I think now it's become... You're old enough to remember Ivan Lendl trying to win Wimbledon.
Yeah.
He won everything else and it was going to be like a career Grand Slam for him. And clearly the best player in the world by a mile over the rest of the season, but just couldn't win Wimbledon. Had a grass court built into his house that was like the same stimp meter as Wimbledon, all that kind of nonsense, right? And he becomes completely obsessed with it. It's his holy grail. It feels a little bit like Rory saying, I don't care about the Open, I don't care about the US Open, the biggest tournament in the world, the most hype is the Masters. It's like, now it's holy grail. It's like, you just ratcheted up the pressure even more.
Yeah, I know.
You want to be ratcheting that down going, look, I just need to treat it like any other tournament.
Well, he's saying there, if he's saying that, look, I want to, get out and try to enjoy his life to an extent and try to maybe experience other things, that's a difficulty. It's a difficulty. I think any sportsman and woman will certainly recognise the certainly mental torture that probably he's going through now. And as you say, it's built up now to such a thing that even in the build up to the Open, even in the build up to the USPGA, the US Open, whatever it'll be further down the line, the Masters will be brought up.
Yeah.
So it'll be now that's going then into next season. As soon as we're getting in the hype from January next year, it'll be all towards the Masters again. So it is something where you just think in general, just go and concentrate now on the next tournament. Just leave it now. That's the way it is. If he doesn't win the Masters, yes, he maybe in his own head would maybe be gutted for what's happened and the failures that he's had on the last day. But ultimately, he's just still had a great career and he's still going great. I know, but go on. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, I think you're dead right. I think the other thing is that if he wins a British Open or US Open again, he'd always be like, it's only a British Open and a US Open. A little bit.
Yeah.
He actually won't be able to enjoy them as much because they're all still majors.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I know what you mean. I know exactly
by
what you mean.
by putting this hierarchy in place, which clearly is there anyway, but by telling everybody it's there, it's like, yeah, I won another British Open. I'm really thrilled, but I'm completely empty inside until I win the Masters. I don't know. It just seems like it's extra pressure when he doesn't need it.
I think even as well when you start to talk, he's talking about the chimp paradox. There's so many sportsmen and women that have been speaking about that over the last years. I think you start to be even more pressure because there's more scrutiny. They're saying, look, is he right mentally? Is he strong enough to actually deal with that with another last day at the Masters or another last day at a major tournament? That's what's going to be around him now. I just think personally, from a personal point of view, if I've ever worked, because I worked with a psychologist for a while when I was at Sunderland, I just kept it to myself. Look, it's my own thing. I'd rather just keep my head with, going to see a psychologist, going to maybe if I'm having troubles on the pitch.
How did that work? How did it come about?
It come about through a friend put me in contact with a psychologist over in England called Keith Power, who he worked with David James, he worked with a couple of footballers. Personally, it didn't really work for me. I have to say that it didn't really work with me. But I think I did initially 6 sessions with him, and it was just basically about positive. Obviously, they're around the positive thinking. Certainly the time when I came into football was more around the fact is it's just get out and get on with it. Basically, when you know full well there's so much now from a mental point of view that all sorts of players would be going through, all sorts of participants would be going through. So I just decided, look, I'll take it upon myself to try to maybe adjust things in my own head, try to just put a bit of perspective on things as well, try to get a bit more relaxed and try to get the best out of myself. I felt as though it didn't necessarily work for me. I didn't. Now maybe it should have been something I should have stuck with long term over a number of years, tried to maybe really go into it and try to adjust myself in a certain way long term.
Did the club know you were doing it, or did
no?
And did you tell anybody at the club at all?
No one at the club at all.
Right,
no.
wow.
I didn't say anything. It was just my own thing off my own bat. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Why did you feel you needed it?
I wasn't playing well. Didn't have a great relationship with the fans, and I think that was affecting me when I was going onto the pitch. You see, I'd gone in such a level where I'd gone from, say, Preston North End, where I was playing third division football, or League Two football as it is now, to Premier League football within the space of about 2 years.
Yeah.
You know, I'd gone from probably being one of the most sought after players outside the Premier League during that time, and then I got to the Premier League. I think you know, maybe international debut didn't quite go as well as I would have wanted. It took a while for me to become established. Then I started to feel comfortable playing international football, started to feel great, got the move to Sunderland, and everything had gone so quickly in an upward spiral, and I didn't particularly like living in Sunderland at the time, because I felt as though, and I've something that I've spoke about as well, where I feel as though that everyone wanted a piece of you the whole time. You felt as though you couldn't have your own space. You went out for a dinner, you went out for a coffee, went out for a beer, whatever you were doing, it just felt as though that everything was on top of you, and I wasn't maybe prepared for that. So I got maybe a year down the line, I wasn't playing well, and I just thought, I'm going to try and have a crack to try and change things. And
did you do other stuff as well as seeing a psychologist, or was it just that was like, I'm going to see...
Working on the training ground as well and things like that, trying to maybe work on your own individual, working working with one of the coaches, working on little things which might not necessarily have helped me, because you maybe are overthinking things. It's maybe then you're going to see a psychologist then to try to correct the things that you're actually thinking too much about, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So it was one of those where you can't. I can get what Rory's saying, but when you start to say it openly, you start to think, well, I'm starting to think too much. I'm actually reading the chimp paradox and all that.
Yeah.
It starts to just maybe I felt as though, for me, as I said, it didn't work, because I felt as though I was overthinking everything.
Yeah.
And it was only my last season at Sunderland when I actually felt as though I was showing some consistent form. We play well, we get relegated, so it kind of goes out the window anyway. So. There you go.
The last few people who've talked about the chimp paradox, Ronnie O'Sullivan, and there was somebody else. Team Sky have been using it as well. It's like, oh, sorry, and Brendan Rodgers at Liverpool just around the time of the slip.
Well, they had the what's the lad who?
Steve Peters.
Steve Peters. He was in at Liverpool working with them for a long time with Gerrard, wasn't he?
Well, pick somebody who's like, you know, working with Steph Curry and maybe Jordan Spieth. That's what I'd be looking for. Somebody who's just got a better track record, a recent track record. Not that, you know, it's bad or anything. Right, on to the Irish Times. Obviously, full page of Liverpool Club, the TV coverage, and the Sean Cox "You'll Never Walk Alone" banner that the Liverpool players used in front of their fans last night. And then the other side is the president welcoming Grand Slam heroes to Áras an Uachtaráin. It's Johnny Sexton and Laura, his wife, meeting Michael D. Higgins. And then tickets for the Ireland-New Zealand rugby match are going to break the €100 barrier. For Category 2 tickets are going to be 102 quid. Category 1 tickets 112 and premium 137. That's a €15 increase on 2016.
Yeah,
expensive tickets.
It is. It's something as well that's the same in football, isn't it, now as well?
You're not bringing the kids.
No, exactly. Being priced out of the market. Unless you're a wealthy family, you're going to struggle to maybe get the real grassroots, or the working class man or woman. You're struggling to get a family there, aren't you? That's how it is.
And the thing about the November internationals is that it's actually generally easier to get tickets, because the corporate tickets for the Six Nations are booked up years in advance, effectively. Yeah. So that's a real pity that that's happening there. And then a nice touch from Liverpool last night. Yeah.
I think we certainly through the show last week, and we managed to get the GAA jersey over to Liverpool at the weekend, which it was a great touch on Liverpool that they put the Dunboyne GAA, wasn't it, out the weekend. So that was a nice touch, I think, at the weekend. Liverpool have done everything right around Sean Cox and the way that it's gone. I think we all wish him all the very best in his recovery.
Yeah, and so that's the front cover of the Examiner this morning for you, Sean. Liverpool pay classy tribute to Irish fan after booking Champions League final spot with Real Madrid. And then nervous Wenger wants the love story to end well. We'll talk a bit about Arsene Wenger's chances. It would be a remarkable victory if they managed to somehow beat Atletico, because they haven't got a point away from home in 2018.
Yeah, dreadful record. I was just looking at it all as well. I think Atletico's record, they've not conceded at home since December 2nd, I think it is. They've only conceded 4 goals at home all season. So Atletico at home traditionally were always great, weren't they? They lost to Chelsea this season, actually, in the Champions League.
They just changed the stadium.
Quite surprised. Yeah, into the new stadium, yeah. But now it's become... I mean, I think when Chelsea had beaten them early on this season in the Champions League, you were thinking, is it going to be the fortress that it was in the old ground at the Calderon, yeah. So, but now it is, and since the turn of the year, they've been outstanding. They're great defensively, but they've also got so much attacking talent in the side as well. And the chance was last week, I feel, with Atletico going out to 10 men so early. Yeah,
and the 1-0 lead, and actually things looking great. Devon Toner and Michael D. Higgins, they just had to do it on the front of the Times Ireland edition. Devon Toner's wife, also very tall, because she's also towering over Michael D. Higgins. Most people do, I suppose. But and that was close, but who cares? Is ultimately how Liverpool fans feel. I mean, it wasn't really a 4-2 Roma win last night.
No, I didn't think so. I personally didn't think so. I mean, I was in here with Kenny last night in Shiro doing the show, and the goal probably came too late for Roma. Well, as I said before, there was seconds left in the game as well. I think Kenny said, there's 3 seconds left in the match. It actually turned out it was probably 2.
Yeah.
But it was just once the penalty had gone in, and I felt it was a soft penalty anyway. Roma caused Liverpool problems, yes, but Liverpool, I felt, caused their own problems with how they defended. They just looked a little bit too erratic to me.
Yeah, for sure. What papers have you got for us?
Yeah, well, again, it's the... We've got, obviously, everything dominated by Liverpool playing Real Madrid. We've not really touched on Real Madrid, I suppose, well, and how this final will go, but I suppose it will be something we'll be getting into more in depth as well. Joey Carberry's story as well. This is something it's caught my attention over the last week or two as well. I heard you with Brian O'Driscoll last week, but he is ready to make his move to Ulster.
And that's the exclusive from the Herald from Des Barry. He's had a lot of Leinster exclusive just recently, so if he's writing it, you would expect that... Obviously, so we're given to understand a meeting happened between Joe Schmidt and Joey Carberry, where Schmidt was going to lay out his plan to Carberry and try and convince him that this was the right thing to do. You know, as a Leinster supporter, I'd be very disappointed to see Joey Carberry go. I'm not entirely convinced that it is also the best thing for him on his career, and I'm also not entirely convinced that it's the best thing really for Ulster either, because the details in this story is that it's going to be a 1-year loan deal effectively.
Yeah.
So it's not a long-term solution.
Do you know what? Look, I heard you were talking around it last week, and the thing that sticks out to me as well, even from what Brian was saying, is look, and I think you asked him a question. It's right. Would you want to go coaching? You know, your chance to win trophies, play with better players. You're going to get better. You're going to develop off the back of that anyway. Now, if that ultimatum has probably been made to him, you're not necessarily going to be getting your Ireland chances unless you go and move, unless you go and take the chance. And yeah, it's great that everybody wants that you want to play. Of course, that's the ultimate for any rugby player, will be playing for Ireland. But I don't know. It's I wouldn't like to be told where I have to go.
Yeah.
I wouldn't like. Yeah, I'd want that decision to be about me, what I want, what's best for me. Where am I going to develop? Where am I going to get better? And financially and everything, probably long term, it might be the best move for him. But I don't know. It's particularly as well with the way that it's been at Ulster over the last few months as well. Is that going to be Is that going to be the environment that you're going to want to be stepping into?
Oh, so you go away for a year and somebody else steps into your place and they get really good, and then it's like, well, you weren't around and we had to progress, and this guy's come in and he can do all the things you can do, and actually he's probably going to be a bit cheaper now because he hasn't got all those Ireland caps that you have in the last year, so maybe you should just stay there.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
It's a difficult one once you make that loan move. I was saying, like, when you're on a short-term deal and you go somewhere, to go back, even look at it again. You're always trying to revert back to football terms, but you look at James Rodriguez of the night as well. He's on a loan at Bayern Munich. You know, when we're talking about the non-celebrations of the night, he is not going back to Real Madrid.
Never.
He's not going to play games at Real Madrid.
No.
And once you make that move and you step away from a big club, which of course Leinster are, it's difficult then to come back and fully establish. He may well do that, but that's the way that I'd feel.
So, like, Joe Schmidt's job is to win the World Cup. Joey Carberry's job is to have the best possible career Joey Carberry can have over the rest of his career. Like, is going to Ulster in the long run the best decision for him and for where he wants to go?
Yeah.
I don't know. Like,
no, exactly. And
you're leaving the best club in one of the best organised clubs in world sport, who have clearly got the best academy, who are always going to have the best young players coming through, who can regenerate really quickly after 2 seasons ago, 2.5 years ago, they had their worst European campaign of all time, and now they're the best team in Europe. Yeah. Like,
it's clearly in Joe Schmidt's best interest, isn't it? That's the thing.
Definitely, yeah.
And as you say, he is actually thinking of the World Cup next year. That's the thing that's, of course, in his mind. And that's then the ultimatum's been put to him. Look, you're risking your World Cup place if you don't make that move, and that's the difficulty, I think, isn't it?
Yeah,
for him.
There's no choice then.
Yeah,
like it's okay. Well, I have to do this now for my country. I'm appealing to your patriotism as opposed to, no, this is definitely the best thing for you and for your career development. Because I haven't seen that case made properly yet, and maybe it is the best thing for his career. There
is something else as well I wanted to. We'll get on to certainly David Snaden a bit as well, which is in the Herald as well. It is around the Irish involvement this weekend in the Championship. Sean Maguire at Preston North End this weekend, and Kevin Long as well, who's just scored recently his first goal for Burnley. And you spoke there about the lack of goals from Irish players in the Premier League. So it's something we'll get into in a short while as well. I
totally ripped that off from David, by the way, so I don't want to get any credit for that.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you mentioned it. Yeah, you mentioned it. Yeah.
Ian Madigan to Munster in a World Cup year would be a perfect move. Experience, kicks his goals, and has the flair, says Sam Leahy. # OTB AM. Well, why not? Like, you know, if there's money floating around and there's no tens, although Madigan just needs to prove that he's definitely a better option than Ian Keatley. That's the issue.
Yeah.
Really. How much of an upgrade is it?
We've got in the mirror as well. Again, unreal. That's Liverpool, certainly with, again, dominating how it is as well. The Klopp heroes head for the final showdown with the Galacticos after dramatic Roma night. And of course, we mentioned before as well, Wenger vows a happy ending to his love story. So we'll see with the end. It'll be something we'll get into certainly in a while on Wenger and how it's going to go tonight. Again, it's another interesting one. What would happen as well if Arsenal were to lose tonight as well? Wenger's then got, what? Has he got 2 games left? Has he got 2 games to go? I was thinking maybe have 3, but I don't know. Yeah.
Then the last game was like away at one of the relegation strugglers.
He's going to have to see it through, isn't he? Now with it being 2 games, he'll see it through. But imagine the atmosphere around the Emirates for the last couple of games.
They have 3 games left. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's midweek games next week. There's a lot of midweek games next week. So Ty just catching up on the fixtures that they've missed out on. Yeah. Again, the start, bring on Real. That's the other one. Again, the Sean Cox tribute as well. That's the headline there in the Star. This is the one as well that's caught my eye as well. Is it's a rush over Rashford. Man United are set to open contract talks with Marcus Rashford. The club are to hand the England Ace a bumper new deal. Still not signed a new deal. Apparently on 30 grand a week. That's what they say. 30 grand a week. Which again, what is he? Marcus Rashford, 2021. It's a great deal for a young lad.
Yeah.
But when you look at the other stars at the club, the way that the wages have been driven so high, given the impression that Rashford has made over the last couple of years, he's still way behind a lot. If I'm using Jesse Lingard, for instance, as one. Jesse Lingard, when we spoke about that contract that he signed last year, 100 grand a week, he's way down the pecking order, I suppose, at the club. And I suppose at Man United, there is a hierarchy. You've got to try and get to certain levels, but that's the sort of level that he's at, Marcus Rashford, isn't he?
If you're Marcus Rashford's agent, you're like, these guys don't rate you. Let's just run your contract down 1 more season and then we'll go and get 20 million.
Does Mourinho fancy him? That's the other thing, Jay. Does he actually fancy him? It's the funny one, isn't it, as well with it? Yeah. Again, the Sean Cox banner there as well. Liverpool dominating. The other one as well. This is Marouane Fellaini with a Caris back. Marouane Fellaini claims Jamie Carragher as a pundit are irrelevant since his spitting shame. So what he's actually said was, how can someone like Jamie Carragher question me when he spat on a girl? So does he have a point? I don't know, but it's like
he does. He's got a point. Like,
I don't know. I mean, it's like it's when you're highlighting something like that as well that, you know. Obviously Jamie Carragher was gutted with what happened and things like that, but yeah, there is
the old Letty was without sin cast the first time. Who amongst us hasn't went down the window and gobbed on a neighbour's car and then, you know, accidentally hit his daughter?
I know.
Who hasn't done that?
Again, in the Times, bring on Real. Liverpool survive Roma comeback to make the final. Sorry, that's the Guardian, should I say there? That is
nice finish from Sadio Mane early on.
That's the Mane finish. Yeah, great pitch there as well. Again, it was something I spoke about earlier on. When Mane did score that goal, it was almost as if to me that is game over. Yeah. But it just didn't necessarily turn out that way. Yeah.
I just wanted to ask you about this. This is Sean O'Brien with Rovetta. There he is. There, look, Sean O'Brien on the screen with a lovely horse, Rovetta, part of Jesse Harrington's yard. That's a 4-year-old filly that he and his fellow Capel Street Syndicate members have leased. The filly will run for the new syndicate for the first time on the 16th of May at Punchestown. Didn't realise it was racing in Punchestown, 16th of May. So this is part of the Experience It campaign. Visit racehorseownership.ie to check and see if you have any interest on a horse. Ever own a horse? Ever own a leg of a horse?
I have, yeah. One
Yeah.
or two, yeah.
Yeah.
One or two, yeah. Nina Carberry just retired this weekend, actually. I had a share in a horse with a few of the Irish boys. She won on St. Devote that we had. We had him with Owen Griffin for a while, trains down in Waterford, so we had him for a while. Won as a race anyway, but just didn't quite kick on.
But that one day is enough for everybody.
It was. When Nina Carberry rode him, he was odds on, but still nice when you get that winner, yeah. It's still nice. And I actually I never got a chance to see him race. That was the thing. I've actually owned 2 horses in the past as well, but never had the chance to. It's just coincided with training days, with games and things like that. So I've never had the chance actually to go and see. Maybe now I've retired and further down the line, if I can get involved. Too expensive. That's what it is. Too expensive.
But maybe Horse Racing Ireland can sort us out with an off the ball horse. I mean, come on, we can sort it out.